Good day, friends, and welcome to The Sports Story. On today's podcast, we'll be discussing the NFL and what has been going on in free agency. Now, I will not be able to get to everything in free agency, as this will be done with multiple podcasts, but the first free agency podcast will be done with a special guest today, the lady who will be our new moderator of the podcast, and that lady is the love of my life, my girlfriend, MaCaylee Hadger. Let's give it up for her. How are you doing, MaCaylee?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
I've noticed over the past week that you haven't had any new podcasts come out, and I'm sure that your viewers are wondering what you've been up to.
Thank you for keeping me accountable, and basically everything in the sports world got canceled. March Madness, now the Olympics, MLB, NBA, NHL, and many others. I just didn't think there was much stuff to report on, to do a podcast on, but I think we can get enough questions and make up enough questions for the show to go on.
You're totally right. Just because things are being canceled doesn't mean that there's not important stuff going on in the sports world. Speaking of, the Vikings trade wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Bills.
Yes, and as a huge Vikings fan, Stefon Diggs has been in my life since 2015. He was the 5th round pick out of the University of Maryland, grew up in Maryland, and for the past 5 years, 365 catches, 30 touchdowns, 4,623 yards, all while wearing the purple and gold. And I just want to take this last opportunity to give Stefon Diggs one last skull. Skull!
So, do you think that this was the right trade for the Vikings?
All of that being said, it is the right trade for the Minnesota Vikings at this particular time. Just because you can really tell that there was some smoke, I would say, with trade rumors, some tweets that have been cryptic, and the rise of Adam Thielen, so Stefon Diggs having to play in the shadow of Adam Thielen. And this is all going on. It's all the smoke. And if you look closer, there's a fire, and it's pretty obvious that Stefon Diggs and the coaching staff and the Vikings front office were all growing apart, and it was really time for the Vikings to move on. And because of them moving on with Stefon Diggs and getting this trade done with Buffalo, they were able to acquire 3 more draft picks for this year's upcoming draft and another future draft pick. And just before we go to the next question, the Vikings, instead of having 1 draft pick in this year's first round, we were targeting Trevon Diggs, Stefon Diggs' brother. I believe we will still make that pick at the 25th pick of this year's draft if he's not selected before. If he gets selected before, I suspect us going for A.J. Terrell out of Clemson. We're definitely going to draft a first-round cornerback with the release of Xavier Rhodes and our secondary just looking porous last year. And then also, we're going to draft wide receiver T. Higgins, somebody who's going to come in as a rookie, wanting to be that second option, hungry to be that second option, and I think he's going to really, really excel in the role. So very excited to also see the Vikings build the house that Stefon Diggs left behind.
In regards to the Bills, does gaining a strong player like Diggs give them a shot at the title?
If by title you mean the Super Bowl, I definitely do not think so. However, a division title, winning number one in their division, it consists of the New England Patriots. It consists of the New York Jets, and it consists of the Miami Dolphins. I could definitely see them getting that number one seed, guaranteeing themselves a spot in the playoffs. I really see them being the third or fourth seed. I don't think they're going to have a record that's going to blow anybody away. But I can see them securing a playoff spot this year. But securing a playoff spot means that you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. You're going up against Lamar Jackson. You're going up against Derrick Henry, the Texans, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. If you don't go through all three, you're going to see at least two of the three. And I don't think the Bills are going to be able to have enough resistance to face that type of adversity and continue on in the playoffs. So, very exciting team to watch, but I do not see them winning a title.
Well, you're definitely making it known that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the sports world. Speaking of crazy, the Texans make trade of wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins for Arizona Cardinals running back David Johnson.
Yeah, another crazy trade. And the Stefon Diggs trade, it wasn't that crazy. It was kind of predictable in a way that people have been thinking he's been getting traded for the past 2 years, as I said. This trade, however, comes out of the blue. Nobody saw DeAndre Hopkins getting traded. This Houston Texans team were up 21 points on the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs.
What was Bill O'Brien thinking? Kind of a two-part question, but how do you think that this will really affect the locker room?
Definitely great question. And to be honest, I don't even know what Bill O'Brien was thinking. It's a mystery because, again, they were up 21 points on the Kansas City Chiefs. And Bill O'Brien thinks the best way to beat the Chiefs next year is to trade away a top 3 wide receiver for a running back that really doesn't have much value in today's NFL. The 49ers showed us that you can have 2 or 3 okay to good running backs and have a successful running game. Unfortunately for the 49ers, they had a lot of injuries to their running back game. But Raheem Mostert and 2 or 3 other of the 49ers running backs, they were really good, and together they showed that they can take a team or do their part to go to a Super Bowl. And so you don't need that big name like a David Johnson to have a successful running game. Bill Belichick showed us that. Again, the 49ers showed us that. And for some reason, I mean, you usually need a good wide receiver to win a Super Bowl. You usually need something. And Bill O'Brien giving Deshaun Watson, going into your second part of your question of how it's going to affect the locker room, you really have to think about Deshaun Watson sitting in his locker thinking, great, the guy who the wide receiver I've played with all of my career, probably a big reason why I'm such a successful quarterback in my own right. And my coach just got rid of him and gave me a running back that might be able to run 700 yards next year if I'm lucky. And I don't see, even though Bill O'Brien got a second and a fifth, I think this really shows Deshaun Watson that Bill O'Brien is not for real as a coach and a GM, and will ultimately lead to Deshaun Watson departing the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans pretty much being a franchise that we look upon a Cleveland Browns and a Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars type of franchise, unfortunately.
Who knows what all this will bring for the Texans. For the Cardinals, however, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, where do you see them at the end of next year's season?
Same thing with the Bills. I see them getting pretty far in the AFC just because the AFC is kind of the weaker conference, and the Cardinals, I'm sorry, we're talking about the Cardinals, right? They are in the NFC, and for some reason, my mind was still thinking about the Buffalo Bills or the Texans. But talking about the Arizona Cardinals and where they're going to be at next season, I see them basically being the same place they are right now, sitting outside of the playoffs. I don't see them making the playoffs whatsoever. There's too many good teams in the NFC. The Saints, Green Bay, Minnesota, Seattle, the San Francisco 49ers, the Chargers. If they get a quarterback and that quarterback's able to actually turn them around like a Justin Herbert, that's another playoff spot that's getting taken up. Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady, that's another playoff spot that's getting taken up. And whose playoff spot is the Cardinals defense going to stop? It's a very young team, a young coach, and Coach Kyle Cliffsbury, a young quarterback, and Kyler Murray. And even though they have Larry Fitzgerald and now DeAndre Hopkins, I think they're going to be able to put some good offensive schemes together and get points. But I think the Cardinals' defense is still a spot that needs to be highlighted for this Arizona franchise. And until then, I don't think their offense will be able to score as many points as other teams' offense will be able to score on that Arizona Cardinals defense. And for that reason, I don't see them winning very many points, probably losing a lot of close games, and because of that, I don't expect to see them in the playoffs.
I guess we'll just have to see what Hopkins can do for the Cardinals. Now, what I'm most excited to talk about today, probably our most controversial topic, Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Tom Brady to a 2-year, $60 million guaranteed contract.
And this is well-deserved, and it's only $60 million guaranteed, and there's another $9 million of incentives, so it could be closer to a $70 million deal when it's all said and done. But Tom Brady has been religiously taking pay cuts for Bill Belichick and the New England franchise, and they have been making him pretty much take this pay cut because Bill Belichick saying, hey, Tom, I'm going to give you better weapons. I'm going to give you a Rob Gronkowski, a Julian Edelman, and all these plethora of weapons, and I'm going to give you a Hall of Fame or an All-Star, All-Pro Bowl defense, but, you're going to have to take $14 million less. You're going to have to take $12 million less than all the other Jared Goffs, the Patrick Mahomes, and all these other stud quarterbacks getting their contracts. Tom Brady, you need to take a pay cut. And when it was time for Tom Brady to get his money in New England, Bill Belichick did what Bill Belichick does. He doesn't gain emotion for people. Even Tom Brady's been with the Patriots for 20 years. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, guess how many times they hung out with each other?
0.
They hung out once at a golf tournament, and they were paired together by the golf tournament committee, but both of them, it wasn't chosen. They didn't choose to do it. So Bill Belichick, he's going to stick to his Bill Belichick ways of winning, and that's pretty much why we saw Tom Brady walk out the door and sign this contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and not the New England Patriots.
Do you think that the Buccaneers were the best team for Brady to sign with?
I think so. And something that I saw that was really interesting that most people actually haven't been talking about. This is actually pretty interesting. Bill Belichick, before he was a head coach, he was a defensive coordinator. Bruce Arians, the head coach of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, before he was a head coach, he was an offensive coordinator. So not only do you have two teams or two head coaches, but they're totally different, totally opposites on what they really care about. So I think Bruce Arians, he's going to put more confidence in Tom Brady, more belief in him in a way that playbook's going to get expanded. We're not going to see Tom Brady only making the, say, 5 to 10 yard hitch routes. And I think the reason why we saw Tom Brady make so many of those plays under Bill Belichick is because Bill Belichick knows that's a smart football play. So if you can get 5 yards every play, you're going to win the game because you're never going to have a fourth down and you're going to get a touchdown every time. And that's where Bill Belichick thinks. But this team now, I think, puts Brady in a better position. Not only with the offensive-minded head coach, but he also has a wide receiver in Mike Evans, who's a stud. Above 6 foot, can go out and lay out and make the Superman catches, make those impossible catches, and definitely top 5, top 8 wide receiver in the NFL, and a weapon that probably the best wide receiver weapon that Tom Brady has had since Randy Moss. And that's saying a lot. And last time Tom Brady had somebody like Randy Moss, they went undefeated. So maybe they don't have the best of the best, but Tom Brady in New England has always had people play to above what they normally play. And I think Tom Brady is going to get a lot out of the Tampa Bay players that are already there. He's going to get a lot out of a coach who really wants a good offense.
So, can Tom Brady win without Bill Belichick?
So that's going to be the true test. As I was saying, Bill Belichick and Bruce Arians are two completely different coaches. And this really, really helps Tom Brady's case, because if he can win in this system, it really shows that he's the best quarterback that's ever pretty much walked this earth. It's going to show that it wasn't just the defenses that helped Tom Brady. It wasn't just the coaching of Bill Belichick that put him in this perfect scheme that he couldn't fail. Him coming here and winning without Bill Belichick is going to be tough, because Bill Belichick is one of the best coaches ever. Bruce Arians, he didn't do much with the Arizona Cardinals. I think they went to the Super Bowl in 2011 and won that Super Bowl against the Steelers. Or did the Steelers win against them? Either way, the Cardinals haven't had much success. And the Cardinals haven't had much success. But with that being said, I completely lost what I was saying. What was I saying?
We were talking about if Tom Brady can win without Bill Belichick.
So then, just to answer that question, I believe he can. Even throughout all the adversity that Tom Brady is going to go through, and players who aren't going to be push to do that extra mile. They're not going to have their feet held to the fire that Bill Belichick holds them accountable for. Oh, that's where I was getting with the Bruce Arians point. Bruce Arians coached the Cardinals. That was the first head coach job for him, and he didn't have very much success there. The Cardinals had success, but Bruce Arians came, took over, and they weren't very successful. That's why they moved on to coach Cliff Kingsbury. And that being said, the Arizona Cardinals also didn't have much at quarterback. I think you give Bruce Arians an actual quarterback in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and a great defense who signed Nakama Sue and other defense weapons and building in the draft, which I will have another in the next NFL podcast. I will discuss Buccaneers draft. But for right now, I believe that the Buccaneers coach and front office will do enough for Tom Brady to win without Coach Bill Belichick. And so, this moves us on to our next and final segment. And I call this segment Hypin Hypotheticals.
We hypin hypotheticals. What? We hypin hypotheticals. Let's go.
In Hypin Hypotheticals, my amazing and beautiful moderator, MaCaylee, she will ask me a couple questions, and in real quick 30 seconds, I'm going to hype that hypothetical and give you my take on it.
What if Marcus Mariota can't win the starting position in Las Vegas over Derek Carr?
So, as the Raiders will be moving on to a new stadium, we also thought that the Las Vegas Raiders were also going to move on to a new quarterback. On a radio show today, the Las Vegas Raider quarterback, Marcus Mariota, said that he realizes that this is still Derek Carr's team. And going back to his time at the University of Oregon, he has always been a quiet team leader. Somebody who even Coach Chip Kelly has told him he needs to talk more. He needs to be more vocal in not only the huddles, but in practices and in team meetings and stuff like that. And so being vocal and being that dominant leader has always been a problem for Marcus Mariota. And I think because of that, Derek Carr, he was a guy who was top 3 for MVP a couple years ago. Like, he's a very, very good quarterback. And so Marcus Mariota going in there and kind of showing a little bit of sign of weakness, I think Derek Carr is going to take advantage of that and try to really take the starting position over Marcus Mariota. And Mariota could be doing what he was doing last year on Tennessee Titans and riding the bench, because the Oakland Raiders head coach John Gruden has also doubled down on his belief in Derek Carr in the past. So it'll be very interesting to see that crew and what they decide to do for their quarterback.
Will the 49ers be in the Super Bowl next year?
Do you like the 49ers, MaCaylee?
Love them.
So I added this particular question to the podcast just because I know that you love the 49ers. So for this Hypin Hypothetical, I would actually like you to hype the hypothetical. Do you think that the San Francisco 49ers will make the Super Bowl next year?
Do you think that that's even a question?
I do.
Well, then my answer is hell yes.
Hell yes to the 49ers making the Super Bowl. You do know that you will have to go through Tom Brady to get to the Super Bowl if he does make the playoffs, right?
Yes.
And the Vikings.
Yes.
And the Saints, Drew
Yes.
Brees. Drew Brees re-signed with the Saints too. Drew Brees is back there. It's okay. The Minnesota Vikings will take care of him before you have to worry about him.
Pretty sure that we took care of the Minnesota Vikings last year.
Jimmy Garoppolo only threw the ball 8 times in that game. So, and that is my reason for the 49ers not making the Super Bowl this year. I don't think that the coach, Kyle Shanahan, I don't think he has that faith in Jimmy Garoppolo, especially when they lost that game, 10-point lead, 7 minutes left in the Super Bowl. I think teams have figured them out. I think Minnesota Vikings have really helped them be figured out. And I don't think they're going to bring back enough running back core to help the 49ers go far. And Emmanuel Sanders, he signed with the New Orleans Saints as well. That's big for the 49ers. An unfortunate DeForest Buckner got traded to the Indianapolis Colts and then got his bag. So a lot of things happened for the 49ers, and a lot of stuff was revealed about the 49ers last year. And I just don't think... I think that all adds up to... I think you'll definitely win the playoffs. Your division's a little shaky. You have the Seattle Seahawks right there. The Chargers, if Herbert's actually good. But I really like your guys' chances. I think you'll be in the playoffs. And I wish you the best of luck next year.
Thank you, Michael. My last question for you for the night. Where will Cam Newton end up?
Thank you, MaCaylee, for that amazing final question for the night. Where will Cam Newton end up? I think he goes to the New York Giants. I would love to see him on the New York Giants. Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, the quarterback out of Duke, he showed us this year that he can play, but he also showed us that he has problems protecting the ball. A guy who's very prone to fumbling the ball, and somebody that really needs to advance and, I would say, mature in a quarterback role. And I think doing it behind Cam Newton would be phenomenal for his development. He's a tall quarterback. He likes to be athletic and mobile. Maybe not as athletic and mobile as a Cam Newton, but I think that Daniel Jones should be holding Cam Newton's clipboard next year. And if not the New York Giants, maybe the Denver Broncos. But either way, I'll be excited to watch Cam Newton. If he's not injured, he's an MVP. I think that to the fullest, and I have that faith in him. And so hopefully he's able to get into a good enough spot for him. And I hope Cam gets somewhere that he can be successful. I really, really do. And with that being said, that's the end of this edition of Hypin Hypotheticals, because they are purely hypothetical. Derek Carr may start, may not start. Marcus Mariota may start, may not start. And it's a very weird and crazy time. If you are able to put your bet on either one of these Hypin Hypotheticals, which hypothetical would you hype if you could? Let me know on Facebook page, The Sports Story. Let me know on Twitter at Mykael McMahon1, or you can just type in The Sports Story as well. And subscribe and like to the YouTube page as well. And I appreciate the support. I appreciate the ears, and I appreciate my beautiful girlfriend doing a beautiful job at being the moderator. I hope she comes back tomorrow for me, and I hope you all have a good night, friends.